Prehistoric Planet Ice Age has released, and now I'm going to be doing breakdowns for all 5 episodes, as all 5 did release, as I wasn't exactly expecting them all to release all at once, but here we are. So in this video we're going to be covering the Big Freeze, so that's the first episode, and I'll be coming out with the other episodes later on. I'll probably be recording a couple of them today. But the Big Freeze was a pretty great episode. We looked at many different species from across Ice Age Eurasia and a little bit of North America. A lot of classics here that many of you will be familiar with. And yeah, I really enjoyed some of the sequences in this episode. Many of them were pretty cool. The animals, of course, looked fantastic. The mammoths really were absolutely amazing. And overall, the show, the series, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I don't really do rankings, so I'm not really going to rank it against Prehistoric Planet 1 and 2, but I'd say it is on par with those 2 seasons in terms of quality, and was really just a great time to enjoy these prehistoric animals and learn a bit about their world. Without further ado, let's get started. So the episode begins with a female mammoth trying to make her way through a blizzard. But it is sort of bad timing as she is currently in labour. The baby is born but isn't moving, and it is very cold outside, so it is not a great place to have a birth, and so the mother is very worried. However, the rest of the herd arrive and shelter the mother and baby away from the storm and trying to keep them warm, safe. And when the blizzard clears, the herd is all well, the mother's okay, the rest of the herd's okay, and it is revealed that the baby is alive and safe. So a successful birth, just in not the most adequate of situations for it to happen. We then get a brief montage of how the Ice Age began, with frozen mountaintops, as well as woolly rhinos, Megalonyx family that we will see a bit later, a Homotherium dragging a calf of a woolly rhino, and a surprise new species that felt like it was expected, but I wasn't actually expecting it. It is the cave hyena. So cave hyenas were actually very widespread during the Ice Age and one of the most prolific predators, and quite a menace for our early ancestors. We start this episode off in a cave. And this cave in particular is really reminding me of the Cave with Bones, which is a famous fossil site that contains many different specimens of a range of different species, but particularly cave bears and cave lions. We see an Arctic fox entering the cave here, as well as a colony of bats, a European polecat looking for insects amongst the soil. A Megalosaurus actually wanders by, looks down the cave entrance. Really nice to see this animal here, but we will see this animal much later in the series. Cave hyenas entering the cave system through another entrance, as well as a surprise appearance by the direwolf. So the direwolf has been confirmed for the show for a while, but it's really cool to see it here in this cave. But of course the animal that we are here to see are the Eurasian cave bears. So cave bears lived in various parts of Europe during the Ice Age, but this one in particular, the Cave with Bones in Transylvania in Romania, is where we found quite a lot of cave bear specimens, where they were trapped at the end of caved systems, where there was a lot of mud from melting ice that trapped them in those caves. And it's not just cave bears either that were trapped there, cave lions as well. We'll get onto that in a bit. We see a family of cave bears here, one of many cave bears in this cave at the time. So we have a female with 2 cubs. And it has been quite an exhausting autumn, so they are hunkering down for the winter to hibernate. We see a cave cricket here tapping its long antenna around to feel its way through its environment. However, their cave hibernation is sort of interrupted by 2 unwanted guests. These are Eurasian cave lions. So cave lions are very widespread as well through Ice Age Eurasia, and one of the top predators as well, being a bit larger than the Homotherium that we will see a bit later, and one of the top predators of cave bears, as this pair in particular has ventured in this cave to hunt cave bear cubs. We see this really nice shot with the sun in the sky shining down through a skylight in the cave. These are actually fairly common in cave systems where just a bit of the roof has collapsed and the light is able to shine through, and these two cave lines here are really caught fairly nicely in that light. We see a Megalonyx here emerging from the snow, so we are going to take a break from the cave lines as they close in on the bears, and the Megalonyx here in North America rather than Eurasia is here emerging from the snow. We see her standing up, which is very similar to a polar bear when they emerge, when the mothers emerge in the spring from the winter, when they've been giving birth to their cubs. And this is just a really nice shot. You see the size of the sloth, but also just the beautiful landscape that it's emerged into. The first of the babies that we see is her son, a 3-year-old male. And then we also get introduced to the youngest member of the family, who is only a few months old, a small female. But this clip was the first bit of footage that we got for Prehistoric Planet Ice Age, where the Megalonyx are rolling around in the snow to sort of freshen up in their morning routine. The sloths are hungry, so they must venture to the forest to find food. The mother carries its young on its back, so she will carry her young much like sloths and anteaters do today, where the young are carried on their backs. However, the male is not really, isn't small enough to be carried anymore, and decides to slide down the snowy slope instead. Once they reach the bottom, they go to feed on the various pine needles, as the pine needles are really the only source of nutrition in the wintry landscape. Much like sloths today, they will use their long claws to reel in their food towards their mouths, and then just strip the branch of the leaves, and in this case the pine needles. The baby isn't large enough to reach those pine needles on her own, and so being light enough, she is able to actually climb up, although is kind of unsuccessful and lands flat on her back. So instead she climbs up the back of her older brother and manages to get her first solid food in her life. Back in the caves, we have the lions closing in, passing this frozen waterfall. However, to get to the cave bears, they need to pass other predators, these being the cave hyenas that resemble spotted hyenas but are much fluffier, bigger and more deadly. A very Lion King-esque situation here, 2 lions face to face with hyenas, but a really cool use of the night vision cameras that are creating the atmosphere that this was filmed in life. The cave lions enter the cave bear's chamber, and they are closing in, but to not wake the bears they must stay quiet, and cats are really good at doing this, as they do have soft pads on the bottom of their feet that are good shock absorbers and just allow them to walk almost silently. However, a new smell catches the bear cub's attention, and they know that the cave lions are there. But not before another bear from the neighbouring chamber also catches the scent and lunges forth to engage the lions. The mother is also stirred and defends her cubs. One lion escapes, but the other is trapped and mauled by the 2 bears. We see the one lion that was lucky enough to escape at the entrance to the cave where we had just seen a Megalosaurus previously, and we get a good look at the coloration. So cave lions aren't actually white, they're actually more of a tan coloration, but there have been many white cave lion depictions over the years, most recently the Life on Our Planet series that released on Netflix that depicted them as white, but we do actually have a cub that was found in permafrost that retained that tan coloration, and so we do have a pretty good idea of the color of these animals. The other lion, injured, tries to make its way out of the cave, but is unfortunately left as prey for the cave hyenas. The bear mother now has learned her lesson and will put herself between her cubs and the cave entrance to better protect them and make sure that she is the first bear that any future cave lions come into contact with. We then move to another location where we have these voles wandering around under the snow. So this sort of micro ecosystem is known as the Subnivean zone. So it's a series of burrows created by the voles that keeps them sheltered from predators above, and also just gives them access to plenty of plant matter on the forest floor. We also see a great grey owl, which is a specialist at hunting voles in the modern day. But excavating the snow are a herd of Smilodon or woolly rhinoceros, and yeah, they look fantastic. Like the hair texture work is really great. It really reminds me of a musk oxen, which has very similar hair textures to this. We are introduced to the old female of the herd, named Grandma, who has a much longer horn than the other females in the herd, as she is of course much older, and you see this sort of thing in older female rhinoceros today, where particularly female white rhinos will get pretty long horns later in their lives. But it is also mentioned that she is going blind in her old age, and so isn't really as alert as she used to be. But she is not the only member in the center of the herd. We also have the calf of the woolly rhinos. So this is the youngest member of the herd, and it is seen that he has quite a strong bond with his grandmother, which is really nice to see, as rhinos are actually more social than most people give them credit for, and will enjoy social interactions and spend time with relatives. However, this rather calm scene is interrupted by Homotherium. So these Homotherium are in Eurasia, but Homotherium as a whole was pretty widespread, with multiple species across a few different continents, as we see it a few times throughout the series. But Homotherium here is depicted with colours very similar to that of a snow leopard as they approach the herd. The rhinos stampede as they notice the Homotherium approaching. They surround the calf in a defensive circle with their horns pointed outwards to defend against the cats. And this defense works, as they are able to deter the Homotherium with this very effective defensive strategy that is also used by musk oxen and bison today. And woolly rhinos probably would have done the same if they were living in herds like this. White rhinos today, which aren't the closest relative to woolly rhinos, do live in fairly decent sized herds, and so it's possible that woolly rhinos, given that they are fairly small and live in an environment where there are many deadly predators, especially predators that hunt in packs, that it would probably be a good idea to live in groups. However, Grandma has been left behind, as in her blindness and old age, she is not quite able to find her way. And this leads her to be surrounded by the Homotherium, and it looks like it's all over, until the herd comes back to defend their own, and we get this one woolly rhino manages to hook the horn under one of the Homotherium and flips it over its shoulders. This is something that many modern rhinos are capable of when they are faced with a cat. So if a lion was hunting, say, a white rhino, if it gets it right, the rhino is able to get the horn under the lion and flip the lion over. And after this, the Homotherium retreat, as too many rhinos is too much for them. And we see the grandma reunite with the baby. We are then introduced to the Smilodon, so Smilodon populator in South America. So this particular female is portrayed with double sabers, which is a recent discovery where we found that Smilodon had baby teeth initially that were grown into sabers, and then the adult sabers that are used for killing grew alongside them on the inside, and eventually once they come through they push those baby teeth out and then are able to hunt prey properly. But in this case the female is unable to properly kill prey because the baby teeth simply are not capable of delivering quite a fatal bite. We see this small parrot up here in the mountains, which I don't know which species this is. There are lots of parrots in South America, but this reminds me of a conya. If you know which species this is, please let me know. After she unsuccessfully hunts the parrot, we see her wandering through this Valdivian forest. So these forests are well known from Chile in particular. So these Araucaria trees, or monkey puzzle trees, are an ancient group of plants that lived during the Mesozoic era and have survived to the modern day, with the last great stands of them being in Chile. And it's actually a very familiar location to any paleomedia fans watching, as this is the same location that the last episode of Walking with Dinosaurs was filmed. So Death of a Dynasty was filmed in Chilean Patagonia with these Araucaria trees. We see that she has entered the territory of another Smilodon, and she sniffs this rock which has likely been sprayed by the resident Smilodon. And so she sniffs, but also leaves a signal of her own to let the Smilodon know that she is here. We see her venturing around the territory and looking at different aspects of it, such as this old kill site where we see a few bones of a previous prey item. But she is also experiencing her toothache and is trying to get these milk teeth out. And so we see her scraping on trees, scraping on rocks, just trying to dislodge those old teeth. But then something in the distance catches her attention, and she is thrown into hunting mode. So these are Macrochenia. I've called them Macrochenia in the past because, well, that's what Kenneth Branagh called them in Walking with Beasts. But Tom Hiddleston here calls them Macrochenia, and I can only assume that that pronunciation was encouraged by the paleontological consultants, so I'll try and call them Macrochenia now. But yeah, we see them here depicted in a more up-to-date version than the one seen in Walking with Beasts. So in Walking with Beasts it was depicted with a trunk, but here it is a much more robust animal with a bit of a shorter neck and an inflatable air sac that is able to inflate to create an interesting noise, but is also used to warm the air as they breathe it in. Now we get a good look at that here, where we see the sort of wrinkles in that air sac that do inflate. So our Smilodon is stalking her prey, and I just want to pick out this shot in particular because it really does just remind me of a lion when it's hunting its prey, where you see those constricted pupils as it is focused and just looking straight towards its prey. She lunges forward and attacks one of the Macrochenia in a very similar style to how Puma will try and attack Guanaco, which is a camelid found across Patagonia today. And she is unfortunately unsuccessful, landing on the ground, landing on her feet because cats land on their feet. But I thought this shot was particularly cool, just seeing the determination in her eyes and sort of disappointment that, dang it, that prey is getting away. We see the Macrochenia trotting away as if it is going to escape, but then the male that owns this territory pounces and tackles it to the ground with the assistance of the female, who also attacks, bringing the head down to the ground, and then the male moves in and delivers the killing blow. And we see that here with the male specifically grabbing on and holding the prey down and then drawing the sabers and throwing them down into the throat. So it's a very elegant and precise move that Smilodon will have had to have delivered to get a killing bite on its prey, because they were tackling large animals. Those teeth could easily break if the animal were to jerk or if they were to hit bone. So it's a very precise delivery that Smilodon needed to do to be able to kill prey. And I think this is the most this is probably the coolest Smilodon kill I've seen in a documentary, because I really enjoyed this. It feels very raw and real. So the female now wonders, can I actually eat this carcass? Because technically she did assist in the kill, and it was her hunt to begin with, of which the male interrupted initially. The male is initially hostile, defending his kill, but starts to get a very familiar scent, and that is because the scents that the female has been leaving all over the territory have worked, and the male has actually noticed it, picked up the scent, and knew she was here, just hadn't come face to face with her. And now, recognizing the scent, with this recognition, the male accepts her, and the two are able to slowly bond and will hopefully create a pride of their own. And they will be able to feed together, and the female, until her milk teeth drop out, she has a provider. We get this really nice shot as well of the Smilodons sitting here in front of their Macrochenia kill, and then with the mountain in the background, a few Araucaria trees, and just the steppe of Patagonia all just there. The landscape of Patagonia is just absolutely incredible. It's always amazing to look at, and yeah, it's honestly a shame Smilodon went extinct, because imagine seeing such an incredible predator in that environment. I mean, we still have pumas today, but yeah, imagine if the megafauna actually survived and weren't killed off by humans and climate change. It would be a very different world, but certainly some amazing species would be alive. We close out the episode with the mammoth herd wandering off on their migration at the foot of this glacier. But that is all for episode 1, The Big Freeze. What did you think about it? Did you enjoy it? I certainly did. It was really cool. The Smilodon scene was easily my favourite, as Smilodon has been one of my favourite prehistoric animals for a long time, as there is truly nothing else like it today. And it is just a very epic animal. All the other scenes too, the cave sequence was actually really cool as well, as I've always been fascinated with the cave with bones, because you just have this micro ecosystem there where you just have so many different species using those caves for shelter during the winter, and you could see that in this episode. But yeah, what species was your favourite? What did you think of the episode? What did you think of the series as a whole? If you've watched all the episodes, let me know down in the comments, and I will see you next time for New Lands.